You're listening to How to 20-something, the best podcast that helps both men and women navigate their 20s and learn how to adult across all aspects of their lives. We're going to focus on career, relationships, finances, fitness, nutrition, and all of the common challenges and obstacles a typical 20-something will face in this post-college life. I'm your host, Jess Diamond, and I am the CEO and founder of Jess Diamond Coaching, where I help young professionals get their shit together, gain their confidence, and own their life. No one prepares you for this adulting world, so allow me to help you feel like you are no longer a chicken running around with its head cut off and that you actually know what the hell is going on and what your next step to take is. Welcome to How to 20-something. Welcome back to another episode of How to 20-something, where today I'll be diving into the pros and cons of living with a roommate or two and living alone, as well as how to be a good roommate versus what makes you a bad one. I get it. Not everyone has the option to decide between living alone or living with someone else because let's face it, rent is expensive and it's not getting any cheaper and wages aren't increasing with cost of living. So if you don't have the choice, the luxury of living alone, then you most definitely need to learn how to live with someone else, someone who isn't family. I personally lived with two roommates in my first adult apartment, one roommate in my second, and have been living alone for the last 3.5 years. So I can definitely speak from experience on this one. And let me tell you, it is not easy to live with other people. My sister and mom are probably listening to this and thinking, no, Jess, you're the one that's hard to live with, which is partially true, but I am very considerate and relatively clean, and I expect the people I live with to also be the same. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. Knowing that we're all going to be operating on different schedules and have different levels of cleanliness and different ways of dealing with conflict, there is still a way to live with other people that is considerate of these differences. So let's start with the obvious pros of living with a roommate. The first one is why most people do so, because I think we would all rather live alone if given the option. But we know that it is far more cost-effective to have a roommate. And the more roommates you have, the more money you'll be able to save on rent, utilities, Wi-Fi, as well as other shared expenses like toilet paper, paper towels, communal furniture, spices, and anything else you guys have discussed you'll share the cost of. My first job out of school paid me $18 an hour, so I knew that I would need roommates. It wasn't even an option to live alone. It wasn't even a thought that crossed my mind. I was also coming off of college where I had roommates all 4 years. 2 of the years I shared a bedroom and bathroom. 1 year I only shared a bathroom, and 1 year I had my own bedroom and bathroom. And that's when I felt like I was really living in luxury. My first apartment in Orlando, when I was truly adulting, had me sharing my bathroom with one other roommate, while the other roommate had her own, so she had to pay a little more in rent than us for having the master bedroom. And man, do I have horror stories from that first apartment. But like I said, living alone didn't even cross my mind. I also wanted to meet people and figured having roommates would help that, which is another pro to getting roommates in your new city. You automatically meet someone. You have built-in company. Someone to come home to, someone to meet other people through, someone to talk to after a long day, someone to go do stuff with, which pairs with a con of it does mean less alone time. You don't have the luxury to rot alone on the couch. You are going to constantly be with this other person unless you have opposite schedules or you choose to go into your room for the extra level of privacy and alone time. You also have less space to call yours because you split the common areas, which also means you're splitting access to the washer and dryer and have to coordinate who is doing laundry and when, or who is watching TV in the living room and when, using the kitchen, etc. Having a roommate means learning someone else's routine and how you guys can create a cohesive environment when you have differing schedules. Now, one thing about me is I'm a light sleeper. It's my biggest curse. So I need roommates who will be more intentional about their level of noise when I'm sleeping. And at the time of having roommates, I didn't have a super odd sleep schedule. I'd usually go to bed at 10 and wake up at 6, which I think is pretty normal. But I've had roommates who sleep the day away and are awake all night, or wake up before me or go to bed after me. In those instances, I explain my curse of being a light sleeper and ask if they could be a little more courteous during that sleep time, knowing that the world does not revolve around me. But here's the thing. I'm just as courteous to their sleep hours, if not more courteous. It works both ways, even if they have a seemingly unconventional schedule or they think my schedule is unconventional. But having a roommate can be a lot more intimate than you might think. Emphasis on the can be, because they might not interact with you at all. My first round of roommates were loners, so I didn't actually befriend them or make friends through them. One of my first roommates was a total hermit. She never left her room for days on end or was gone for days on end. Basically, me and the other girl never knew if she was there or not. Her door was always shut, lights were always off, and one day my other roommate worked up the guts to open the door. She knocked first, of course, and saw that the hermit was also a hoarder and never fully unpacked because she couldn't. She had too much stuff. Anyways, she moved out after 4 months and we got someone new who was a lot more normal at first. And then she actually ended up being a liar, a massive partier, and a horrible for my mental health on so many different levels. I think a large part of it was her moving in 2 months before the pandemic and then all of us being unemployed at the same time all together, which at first it made us closer, but after 6 months of that, it had us all on each other's nerves. So yes, that is a rare case for sure, where you're all at home all the time because of a global pandemic, but it still rings true that you're going to get on each other's nerves. It's bound to happen. Now, I know a lot of people who choose to live with their friends, and I also know a lot of those same people who no longer talk to their friends because they live together. Which brings me to a major con of having roommates. Do you really see all parts of someone? Mainly the ugly parts when you live with them. It's their space too. They're going to leave their hair all over the bathroom counter, take hour-long showers, be nocturnal, have company over, cook with different smells than you're used to, clean the kitchen differently than you, if at all. And some of these things are expected. But other things are just gross. And that's where being a considerate roommate is so important, so that you don't feed into the cons of living with someone else, whether you already knew them or they are a complete stranger. That first roommate, her name was Kelly. I shared a bathroom with her. She was a slob, so her long black hair would be all over the white counters and floors all the time, and it was disgusting. The second roommate I shared a bathroom with, Mabel, she actually taught me how to clean the bathroom so that we could split that responsibility, and I had never deep cleaned a bathroom before. So I will give her credit to my bathroom cleanliness even 6 years later. She also told me to wipe down the kitchen after I use it at the end of the day. We were 6 years apart. And that's something I do to this day as well, most of the time. So roommates can teach you helpful things or make your living space a disaster. You never really know what you're going to get. I think one of the bigger cons to having a roommate is part of what it takes to be a considerate roommate. It's just a mere annoyance, and that is to communicate with them. Communicate when something is bothering you, when you are going to be gone, when you're going to have people over. There's a lot of checking in that needs to happen because you are living with someone else. It is their space too. The roommate of mine who had the master bedroom, Jennifer, would start dating a guy and either have him over all the time or would leave for days on end and would never communicate either situation. The problem with her being gone for multiple days in a row is she had a dog and would leave him behind and just expected us to take care of him. She wouldn't ask, she wouldn't thank us, she wouldn't let us know when she'd be back, and her dog was a Cocker Spaniel, which is a dog breed known for its spitefulness. And man, was he spiteful when his mom would leave. So he peed everywhere, including all over my area rug, to the point where I had to ask Jennifer if she could pay to have the rug deep cleaned because our apartment would reek of urine, and she was not happy to do so. But that's your responsibility. Being a considerate roommate means being accountable to yourself, and if you have any pets, then them too. Which also pairs into a pro of having roommates, so long as you don't abuse this. but you do get to lean on them for help with feeding or walking your pets. Don't expect them to do it, and you should still ask them if they can every time and then express your gratitude afterwards, but I think more people will help take care of some of their roommates' pets than not, so it is like free pet care. Again, as long as you don't abuse this generosity. When Jennifer kept abandoning her dog for days on end and expected me to pick up the responsibility, I eventually asked her if she could compensate me with a venti from Starbucks once a month. We're talking $5 a month for taking care of her dog for multiple days on end. She thought it was the most outrageous thing I could have asked. And guess what? Instead of compensating me, she started taking care of her dog again. So that worked out in my favor anyways. My second apartment, where I had one roommate, we each had our own bedroom and bathroom. She had one dog at first, and then a month into us living together, she got a puppy. And she told me she would be training this puppy from the get-go and to not worry about it. I mean, I was over the moon. I had all the perks of having a puppy without any of the responsibilities. And this roommate, Tori, was much more considerate in that regard. She would ask me if I could walk her dogs if I was working from home, and also had dog walkers come in so the responsibility didn't fall only on me. And she was good about training her dogs, so it wasn't an issue. I'm a dog lover, so I'm happy to take them for a walk or feed them if needed. I'll even offer without being asked. But it should not be an expectation of the roommate to share pet responsibilities, because it's not their pet, it's yours. Or vice versa, it's your pet, you shouldn't expect your roommate to help you take care of them. But it is still a positive to having a roommate. Now, let's switch to living alone. Living alone is wonderful. You don't have to check in with anyone. You could be as loud or as quiet as you want, as messy or as clean as you want. You have your own space through and through where you can detach from the rest of society and not talk to a soul if you don't want to, which can be dangerous for your mental health, but is overall a positive experience because you aren't in constant communication with someone when it comes to your living quarters. You also don't have to check in with anyone if you're going to have a guest over. However, living alone is far more expensive. That's the obvious. Everything falls on you to cover. The rent, the utilities, the Wi-Fi, the toilet paper, the paper towels, cleaning everything, and everything else that I mentioned at the beginning of this episode that you could split with a roommate is now your own responsibility. I know that living alone is a luxury. I know that I saved up my money and actively choose to pay more in rent to preserve my peace of mind. And that's where the choice comes in. If living alone is important to you, then you are going to have to sacrifice your savings to make that happen. Mainly if you're just getting started in the adult world because your salary is just not comparable to these rent prices. People get so pressed when I say the word choose, but the way I see it is everything is a choice. You choose to live in an apartment. Maybe the other choice is to live out of your car or on the streets because you can't buy a house, but that's still a choice you made. You choose to live alone or live with roommates. Maybe the choice to live alone means you go into debt, where living with roommates means you can have money left over after you pay your bills for the month. It's still a choice. So yes, you can choose to live with roommates or to live alone. Whether it's a smart choice for you is entirely up to you, as there are pros and cons to both. But if you do choose to live with a roommate, then you need to know how to live with someone else, because that's what's going to make this living experience manageable. At the end of the day, it's your budget, your personality, your living quarters, so you get to decide what you want that to look like. If you're an introvert, then living alone might be better for you. Whereas for an extrovert, that could be a nightmare. It's also safer to have roommates. If you're afraid to live alone out of fear of being robbed or having things broken into, or God forbid someone follows you home, having someone else home already does make it safer to exist there. Now, the last part, which I've kind of woven most of these through this episode, is how to be a good roommate. Aside from common courtesy, that sometimes isn't so common, of turning the lights off if you're the last one in the room, keeping the shared spaces relatively clean, notifying when guests will be over and for how long, being quiet when people are sleeping, and so on and so forth. Being a good roommate also looks like paying rent and other bills on time, not eating food that you didn't buy, taking your clothes out of the washer and or dryer as soon as you're able to, asking to borrow things instead of just taking, being respectful to other people's belonging spaces and the person as a whole. When you have a roommate, you are dealing with the whole other person's life, habits, schedule, demeanor, history. It's not easy peasy lemon squeezy. It's two people living together who aren't romantically involved, meaning issues will come up. It's not to say that issues won't come up if you're romantically involved, but I'd say they're more likely to come up when you aren't, when there is no other skin in the game. It's how you deal with them and your role in the roommate dynamic that matters. But by now, you should know how to not be the shitty roommate if having a roommate is the direction you're going with your living situation, while also knowing that you can change who you live with from time to time. Maybe you live alone and are ready to live with other people as a change of pace or to save money. Maybe you live with other people and are ready to live alone. And you can continue to switch back and forth as you move through your 20s. Just know that whatever you decide, right now and down the line, that each side comes with their own pros and their own cons. So check in with yourself and with where you're currently at in life and go with what's going to work best for you right now in this current season. Which is exactly how I'm going to wrap up this episode of How to 20-something. If you liked what you heard, learned a bad habit you have, felt called out, think I missed something on this topic, or totally agree with me, then please let me know. Send me an email, send this episode to a friend who is deciding whether to live alone or with roommates, or post this episode to your story and tag me at coach.jessdiamond when you do. Just please help me grow this platform so I can continue to help all of the 20-somethings in the world as they navigate the most confusing decade of their life. And as always, I can't wait to be in your headphones again next week with another brand new episode.